This is going to be part 2 of me talking about trig functions of any angle. And in part 2, we're going to be able to use the unit circle or our trig table to evaluate sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent for any angle. So be aware that the directions say find the exact value without using a calculator. That tells me that I'm going to need to use my unit circle or trig table. So here we go. I have a problem that asks me to find the cotangent of 120 degrees. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out what that angle looks like on my unit circle. So here's my initial side, and here's 120 degrees. So this angle in blue is the one that I'm looking at on my unit circle. Okay. I know that if I draw this triangle, it's going to look like this. And I have a point, and the point is negative 1/2 root 3 over 2. So that tells me my x distance is negative 1/2. And my y distance on my triangle is root 3 over 2. And cotangent of theta is going to be adjacent over opposite, or I can also think of this as x value over y value. Okay, so I'm going to take my I'm going to do this for cotangent of 120 degrees. So cotangent 120 degrees. Okay, so I need my x value, which is negative 1/2. So I'm going to get over my y value, which is root 3 over 2. Okay. Right, draw that a little bit better. Okay. Here's a problem. I can't leave my answer like this. I have a radical in the denominator, which is not kosher. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to think of this as negative 1/2 divided by root 3 over 2. That's going to give me negative 1/2 times 2 over root 3. 2's will cancel, and I'm going to be left with negative 1 over root 3. Okay, well this looks better, but I still have root 3 in the denominator. So I need to take this one more step. I have to multiply by root 3 over root 3, because this will give me negative root 3 over root 9. Square root of 9 is just 3, so I end up with negative root 3 over 3. So I can tell now that my final answer for cotangent 120 degrees is negative root 3 all over 3. Okay. So this is using the unit circle. Let's think about this using the trig table. So you had to memorize this trig table, so why not use it? I'm going to do the same problem. I'm going to do cotangent 120 degrees. Okay. This time, I can already see that 120 degrees isn't on my trig table. So I'm going to have to think about a reference angle. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to visualize where 120 degrees is in my coordinate plane. So when I draw it in standard position, here's my terminal side, or sorry, my initial side, and there's my terminal side. Okay, and this angle here is 120 degrees. Okay, now I can see that my angle is going to be in quadrant 2, which means whatever x values I have, they will be negative, and whatever y values I have, they will be positive. Okay, so that's going to be important for me to remember here. Now, again, on my trig table, no 120 degrees, but I know that if I draw this triangle right here, it's going to be the same one as the triangle I would draw for my 120 degree angle. So if I could use this angle here in red, that could really help me, because that angle in red might be one I have on my trig table. So how can I find that angle? Well, it looks like I can do 180 minus 120, which gives me 60. That tells me this angle in red right here is 60 degrees. And I want to find cotangent, so let's see if, ooh, that is on my trig table. So I know that cotangent 60 degrees is going to be root 3 over 3. Okay, here's the problem. Cotangent is going to be opposite over hypotenuse. Excuse me, hypotenuse over opposite. Okay, one more time. Cotangent is going to be adjacent over opposite. I'm confusing myself. Okay, so cotangent is going to be adjacent over opposite. So my adjacent side is going to be a positive value, and my opposite side is going to be a negative value. So if I have a, for cotangent 120 degrees, I'm going to have a positive over a negative, and that'll give me a negative answer. So that tells me that cotangent 120 is going to be negative root 3 over 3. Okay, same as before. Good. Alright, now I'm going to find cosine 5 pi over 3. So I'm going to do a similar problem as before. Okay. I'm going to use the unit circle first, so here we go, 5 pi over 3 right there, and here's my angle. The point I have is 1/2 negative root 3 over 2. If I want to think about what my triangle would look like this, like that, right there, okay. So I'm doing cosine. Cosine of theta is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse. That's going to be x over c. Okay. C on the unit circle is always 1, because you can see here that the radius of my circle is just 1. In this case, my x value, or my adjacent side, is going to be 1/2. So I can also just look right here, 1/2. So that tells me cosine of 5 pi over 3 is 1/2. There we go. Alright, using the trig table now. So we already know that 5 pi over 3, that angle is going to look something like this. Okay. If I draw the triangle is going to look something like this. And if I use a reference angle, I can figure out that angle in red right there. It's going to be, let's see, 1 time around the circle is 2 pi minus 5 pi over 3. I could convert to degrees if I wanted to, but let's just see. 6 pi over 3, I need common denominators, minus 5 pi over 3. That's going to leave me with pi over 3. So I'm going to use pi over 3 as a reference angle. So I'm looking for cosine. And I know cosine, here's pi over 3 on my trig table. Cosine pi over 3 is going to be 1/2. So let's write that down. Cosine pi over 3 is 1/2. But I'm looking for cosine 5 pi over 3, so I have to think about, this is going to be my angles in quadrant 4, where the x values are positive and the y values are negative, so that's going to mean that's negative and this is, oops, other way around. It's positive and this is negative, and cosine is going to be adjacent over hypotenuse, so my adjacent is going to be my x value, which is going to be positive. Okay, so my answer is going to be positive. It's going to be a positive divided by the hypotenuse, which is just going to be 1. So positive divided by 1, that's going to be a positive answer. I get that cosine 5 pi over 3 is 1/2, which is the same thing I got before.